The dense jungles of Drakthar loomed ahead as the human delegation's shuttle touched down, its landing gear sinking slightly into the moist earth. The planet's air was thick with humidity, the scent of unfamiliar flora mixing with the distant cries of unseen creatures. Ambassador Lucas Freeman stepped out first, his boots crunching softly on the alien soil. He scanned the surroundings, his sharp blue eyes narrowing as he took in the landscape, a world that was both beautiful and treacherous. Behind him, the rest of the delegation disembarked, a team of diplomats, scientists, and security personnel. Each member carried themselves with the quiet confidence of those who had seen their share of alien worlds. They were here under the banner of peace, but Lucas knew that the Drakthari, the planet's native species, had not fully embraced that concept. The Drakthari had sent a welcoming party, a dozen tall, armored figures with scaled skin that shimmered in the sunlight. Their eyes, narrow and predatory, gave away little emotion. At the head of the group stood Chancellor Vroth, the Drakthari leader, his stature imposing even among his own kind. Ambassador Freeman, Vroth's voice was deep, resonating through the clearing. We welcome you to Drakthar. We hope this meeting will solidify the bonds between our species. Lucas offered a polite smile, though he remained cautious. Thank you, Chancellor Vroth. We look forward to discussing how our people can work together for mutual benefit. As pleasantries were exchanged, Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The Drakthari were too cordial, their smiles too forced. He'd dealt with enough hostile negotiations to recognize when his hosts were hiding something. But he kept these thoughts to himself, maintaining the appearance of a diplomat focused on peace. The delegation was escorted deeper into the jungle, where the Drakthari had prepared a grand feast in honor of their guests. The path wound through towering trees and underbrush that rustled with unseen life. The human security team remained alert, their hands never straying far from their weapons, though they made no overt movements to suggest alarm. They arrived at a large clearing where a massive table had been set up, laden with exotic foods and surrounded by intricately carved wooden chairs. The Drakthari's hospitality was evident in the spread, but Lucas noticed how the Drakthari warriors subtly positioned themselves at the edges of the clearing, their eyes never leaving the humans. As the feast began, Lucas engaged in conversation with Vroth, discussing trade possibilities and cultural exchanges. Yet, he noticed that the Drakthari leader seemed distracted, his gaze frequently shifting to the jungle beyond. It was a small detail, but it set off alarms in Lucas's mind. Then, in the midst of a discussion about shared technology, a low rumble echoed through the jungle, causing the ground to tremble. The conversation faltered, and the Drakthari around the table went silent, their expressions tense. Lucas's hand slipped beneath the table, fingers brushing the handle of a concealed communicator. "What was that?" he asked, his tone calm but probing. Vroth's smile was tight, forced. "Nothing to worry about, Ambassador. Merely the sounds of the jungle. Drakthar is home to many large creatures." Before Lucas could respond, the rumble grew louder, accompanied by the sound of snapping branches and the distant roar of something enormous. The Drakthari warriors at the perimeter tensed, their hands on their weapons, but they made no move to intervene. Lucas exchanged a glance with Lieutenant Harper, the head of security. Her expression was unreadable, but he knew she was ready for anything. The delegation's focus shifted to the edge of the clearing, where the underbrush began to shake violently. And then, with a deafening crash, the Joricals emerged. They were massive, towering creatures with scales as black as night and eyes that glowed with primal fury. Their wings, though folded, stretched wider than the clearing itself, and their claws dug into the earth with each step. The Joricals were the apex predators of Drakthar, creatures that no being dared to challenge. The Drakthari warriors backed away, fear flashing in their eyes as they watched the beasts advance. It was clear now, this was no accident. The Drakthari had unleashed their deadliest weapons, expecting the humans to be annihilated. But Lucas Freeman was no stranger to such treachery. He remained seated, his calm demeanor never wavering. "Lieutenant," he said quietly, "initiate Protocol Alpha." Lieutenant Harper nodded once, signaling the security team. The humans, seemingly defenseless, moved with practiced precision. Specialized rifles appeared in their hands, sleek and unassuming, yet packed with the most advanced human technology. As the Jaracals charged, their roars shaking the very ground beneath them, Lucas felt a strange calm settle over him. This was the moment of truth. The Dractheri had underestimated humanity, believing them to be weak. Now, they would see the error of their ways. The first Jerkael lunged, jaws wide, and in that split second, the humans opened fire. Not with bullets of destruction, but with the promise of control. The medicine-infused rounds struck true, and the Jerkael's ferocity faltered. As the creature stumbled, its eyes glazed over, the narrative of the battle shifted. The Dractheri watched in stunned silence as their greatest weapon, once thought invincible, became docile under the human's command. And Lucas, standing tall before the beast, placed a hand on its scaled snout, his voice steady. "We came here for peace," he said, his words carrying a weight that silenced even the jungle's chaotic symphony. "But we will defend ourselves if necessary." The Jarakael, now calm and under control, nuzzled against Lucas's hand, a scene so surreal that it left the Dractheri leaders speechless. The tide had turned, and the humans were no longer just diplomats, they were conquerors of a different kind. The clearing fell into a stunned silence, the Dractheri warriors frozen in disbelief as their once mighty predators now stood tamely beside the human delegation. The Jarakael, its massive head lowered, let out a low, rumbling purr as Lucas Freeman continued to stroke its snout. The fearsome creature, which moments ago had been an instrument of death, now resembled a docile pet under his touch. Chancellor Vrotha's eyes flickered with a mix of anger and confusion, his mind struggling to process the sudden shift in power. His plan had been flawless: lure the humans into a false sense of security, then unleash the Jaracals to wipe them out. Yet here stood the humans, unscathed and somehow controlling the very beasts meant to destroy them. Lucas met Vrotha's gaze, his expression unreadable. "It seems, Chancellor, that your predators have a softer side," he remarked, his voice calm but laced with an undercurrent of warning. "Perhaps we can discuss peace more honestly now." Vrotha's jaw tightened, but he forced a smile. "Your technology is impressive, Ambassador. I see now why your people are so confident in their ability to negotiate." Lucas nodded slightly, acknowledging the strained compliment. "Confidence, yes. But our preference has always been for diplomacy, not domination. We were hoping to avoid any misunderstandings." His tone remained even, but the message was clear. The humans were prepared to defend themselves, and any further aggression would be met with an equally calculated response. Lieutenant Harper stepped forward, her eyes scanning the edges of the clearing where the Dractheri warriors still stood, their hands on their weapons. "Sir," she said quietly to Lucas, "we should secure the perimeter. I don't trust them to keep this from escalating." Lucas nodded. "Do it, but be discreet. We don't want to provoke them further." Harper signaled to her team, who moved with practiced efficiency. The security personnel spread out, subtly positioning themselves between the Dractheri and the rest of the delegation. Their weapons, still trained on the Jaracals, were now also ready to respond to any other threat. Vrotha's eyes followed the movement of the human soldiers, his unease growing. He had underestimated the humans, and now he found himself in a precarious position. The Jaracals were the Dractheri's ultimate weapon, yet they had been rendered useless in an instant. The balance of power had shifted, and Vroth knew that he needed to regain control. If not through force, then through deception. "Ambassador," Vroth began, his voice taking on a more conciliatory tone, "perhaps we started off on the wrong foot. The Jaracals are a symbol of our strength, but also of our culture. We meant no harm. We only wished to demonstrate our power as a sign of mutual respect." Lucas arched an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. "A curious way to show respect, Chancellor, by unleashing deadly beasts upon your guests. I must say, it's not a method we're accustomed to." Vrotha's smile wavered. "Understand, Ambassador, that on Drakthar, strength is a language of its own. We believed it was the only language your people might understand." Lucas regarded him for a moment before responding. "Strength, Chancellor, comes in many forms. What you've witnessed here is just one example of ours. But true strength lies in cooperation, in building alliances rather than enemies. The words hung in the air, a challenge and an offer wrapped in one. Vrotha's pride fought against his logic, but he knew the truth. His attempt to intimidate the humans had failed spectacularly, and continuing down this path would only lead to ruin. He needed to salvage what he could. Before Vroth could respond, a sudden rustling in the jungle behind him caught everyone's attention. The Drakthari warriors tensed, their hands tightening on their weapons. The humans, too, readied themselves, but Lucas raised a hand, signaling them to hold. From the shadows of the jungle emerged another Jurkael, its massive form slowly making its way toward the clearing. But something was different about this one. It moved with a strange, hesitant gait, as if unsure of its own intentions. Vrotha's eyes widened in alarm. "No, it cannot be," he whispered, his voice trembling. "That one, it's the Alpha." The Alpha Jurkael was a legend among the Drakthari, a beast of unmatched ferocity that even they feared to confront. If this creature had come to the clearing, it could only mean one thing. Something had drawn it here, something that even the apex predator could not ignore. Lucas remained calm, watching the Alpha with keen interest. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "prepare the tranquilizers, but hold fire until I give the order." Harper nodded, her team readying their weapons with quiet precision. The tension in the clearing was palpable, every breath held as the Alpha Jurkael approached. But instead of charging, it stopped just at the edge of the clearing, its massive head lowering to the ground in a posture that seemed almost submissive. The sight was surreal, a creature of such immense power, bowing before a group of humans. Vrotha's disbelief was evident, his plans unraveling before his eyes. Whatever control the Drakthari thought they had over these beasts was now irrelevant. Lucas stepped forward, his movements slow and deliberate. He approached the Alpha Jurkael, the other humans watching with bated breath. When he was just a few feet away, he extended his hand, palm open. The Alpha hesitated, then leaned forward, its great snout brushing against Lucas's hand. The clearing was silent, the only sound the steady breathing of the colossal creature. Lucas turned his head slightly toward Vroth, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. "Chancellor," he said, "it seems your legend has chosen a new master." The Alpha Jurkael stood calmly beside Lucas Freeman, its enormous presence a silent testament to the shifting power dynamics. Chancellor Vrotha's facade of control had crumbled, replaced by an uneasy realization that the humans were far more formidable than he had anticipated. "Chancellor," Lucas began, his tone firm yet devoid of malice, "we've proven our capability, not just in strength, but in understanding. These creatures, your apex predators, respond to more than just brute force. They recognize intent, respect control born from respect." Vroth, now stripped of his earlier arrogance, nodded slowly. The weight of his miscalculation was evident in his downcast eyes. "You have shown us a new path, Ambassador. Perhaps there is more to your people than we first believed." Lucas allowed a small smile. "There is always more to learn, Chancellor. That is the essence of diplomacy, of coexistence. We came here to offer peace, and that offer still stands. But it must be based on mutual respect, not fear." The jungle around them seemed to hold its breath, as if the entire planet awaited Vrotha's response. He took a deep breath, his pride warring with the stark reality before him. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of surrender and the hope of a new beginning. "Ambassador Freeman, I accept your terms. Let us forge a path together, one built on trust, not deception." Lucas extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Vroth took it. The handshake was more than a gesture. It was the first step toward a genuine alliance. As the humans prepared to depart, the Alpha Jurkael watched them, a silent guardian of the peace they had secured. The delegation had come seeking understanding, and in the end, they had gained far more. A new respect that would shape the future of both species.